Hey everybody, welcome to the Realistic Prepper. This is show number 5, and today we're going to be talking about fighting and combatives, or are you fit to fight? We're not really sure what we're going to name it yet, but that's what the topic's going to be. And my co-host there, David.
Hey, what's up?
And later, just so you know, we do have some footage of us actually training. I had to do this pre-class. I couldn't actually film during my class due to the way we're set up. David, I think he got better footage than I did. But at some point we're probably gonna redo uh, different sections of this, and we're going to have better footage than what we got. We're probably in any episode we do, we're probably going to do another episode about the same topic at some point. Only we're going to do a better job of it, just to let you know.
Well, my footage looks like a bear clawing at a donut, y'all. So at least if this whole episode sucks, you can at least watch a fat man look like a bear clawing at a donut. So you have that coming for you here at the end.
Yeah, and you can watch me. You can watch me sweating spaghetti sauce in the dojo there. So they felt the need to turn the heat up on us at our new place.
Oof.
We switched locations, and I'm not
Mhm.
used to the thermostat there. And when it says 65, it's really 165, and I didn't
Oh,
realize. So it got pretty warm in there. But yeah, we're basically what we'd like to talk about here, and this is a subject that I think a lot of preppers tend to avoid because they're not comfortable with it and because they don't know what they're doing. And let's face it, on things we're not sure about and we're scared of, we tend to avoid those things, and that is fighting hand to hand and being able to defend yourself. And David and I, we were discussing this pre-show. We both know a lot of preppers that they have food packed up for months. Their food preps are good. They know all about water storage, and their water preps are good. Uh, they have thousands of rounds of ammunition, dozens of guns. Their house looks like a fort. They got a moat out front, whatever. But then you see these people, and they're 350, 400 pounds. They can barely even get out of their seat and walk. And the thought of them ever being able to defend themselves in a situation that requires them to actually, a hand-to-hand, mano-a-mano situation, they are definitely not prepared for that. Your thoughts,
yeah.
David?
I would agree, and I would say I can speak with some authority on this because I considered myself in that situation just 6 months ago. I'm a big guy now. I'm strong. I've done weightlifting for most of my life since high school. But as you can probably tell, I don't have a six pack, nor do I do any kind of cardio or running.
Well, you do.
So
It's just hidden
yeah, it's
right
just
behind
hidden. I got it protected. I got my
That's right.
preps on top of my six pack here. But so I was strong, and I've taken some cardio boxing, and so I know how to technically throw a punch. But I never really got any training on combatives.
Hmm.
And I said, well, I'm carrying my gun, but what if your gun doesn't work, or you don't have your gun on you? You have to know how to fight. So last October, I signed up. It's called Krav Maga, and it's basically the Israeli military style of fighting, and really that has helped me hone down on my combative skills. I'm not training to be some super black belt kicking martial arts up in the air. Krav is it's a very I don't want to say basic, but it's a very applicable style of self-defense that is not very flashy. Though it's made to first avoid confrontation, but when you have to confront somebody, it's meant to be violent and quick, and then you leave. You're not there to get in a fight with somebody. You're learn to defend yourself. And when I realized that I lacked in that area, for me, that's when I chose, hey, I need to get training in this. And I've really enjoyed it. And Jack has still explain more. His training is very extensive in this area. I think you said, Jack, going back what, 20 years almost, or 15, 20 years you've been training.
Well, I started training. I started training in kickboxing when I
Hmm.
was about 16, 17 years old, and a friend of mine, he had trained extensively in kickboxing, and he got me into that. And it was Muay Thai, so we used kicks, punches, knees, elbows, and I was never that good at it. I mean, I was good enough, I guess you could say, but I was never
Hmm.
that great. And then When I hit my early 20s, well, before that, when I was 17, I watched, back in, what was it, 1993, I guess, I watched Hoist Gracie in the UFC, and I noticed that he was fighting a bunch of guys that were a lot bigger and stronger than he was.
Hmm.
And, I'm never going to be a big guy. I mean, at the time, I was, 140 pounds, 5'8". And even now I'm not a big guy. I'm 5'9". I weigh about 225, 230. But I'm not a huge guy, and I knew I never was going to be that guy. I was never going to be that huge 250 pound 6'2" monster,
Hmm.
So I'm thinking, that's really impressive. This guy didn't take hardly any punches from these big guys, and he could control them, and he could actually beat them. And so I started watching videos and everything I could get my hands on about Gracie Jiu Jitsu, and in 2000. Think either late 99, early 2000, I took up Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. And right before that, I had started doing these tough man competitions. Now, I don't know if you have them down in Florida. But they,
Hmm.
they, they have what they call tough man competitions, and basically they get guys from right off the street. They go in here and they put the boxing gloves on you, and you go
I
up.
remember that. I remember
Right.
that.
Well,
I do.
I used to compete in those, and
I didn't know that.
I did good. I mean, for the first little while I did really good, and it always seemed like right there on the last they would bring in their own guy. That
Hmm.
always took the prize money, and I just got tired of getting punched in the head basically, and I decided to take up Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, and then within a year I was standing in front of Hoist, and he was handing me my blue belt in Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, and the rest is history, I guess you could say. Now there's been some holdbacks in my rank here and there, so I'm one of those guys. I've been going at it in Jiu Jitsu for about 14 years now, and I still have a blue belt with some stripes on it, but I'm kind of underranked. I guess you could say just due to getting involved in different schools with different philosophies.
Hmm.
But I took that, and then I realized that even with my kickboxing and my jujitsu, it still had some shortcomings. There were some gaps there. Uh, so there's a guy named Paul Vunak, and I started to study a lot of what his philosophies and stuff. And he has this style called Kinamutai, which is basically the art of biting, scratching, eye gouging, and small joint manipulation. And if you combine the stand up of the Muay Thai with the groundwork of the Brazilian Jiu Jitsu with the Kinamutai, I mean, it's a very formidable system. There's very little you can't do. So, once I got involved in that, and like I said, my law enforcement background, you kind of get a feel for what really will work and what won't work out on the street after you've been
Hmm.
out there enough. And I do have a background in security. I work security at nightclubs. There's some very, I guess you could say, popular strip clubs in Memphis
Hmm.
back in the day that I worked security. And you see, and get to experience a lot when you do that
I
kind of
bet.
work.
I bet.
So, that being said, I think I bring a kind of a unique perspective to the table when it comes to
Definitely.
that. But the philosophy behind jujitsu, which is primarily what my footage
Hmm.
is basically you can take the level of aggression to wherever it needs to be. Um, there are certain situations that do not require for an all-out assault on the person,
Hmm.
your antagonist.
Hmm.
Um, for instance, you and I were talking before the show. If let's say David is walking out, him and his wife have just been to a nice restaurant and there's a bar right next door, and this 150, 170 pound drunk staggers out from the bar and he comes over there and starts groping David's wife in front of him.
Hmm.
Well, David, being the nice guy he is and not wanting to hurt the guy too bad, he needs to be able to control this guy until the cops can get there and arrest him. He needs to be able to get him off his wife or get him off him and control him until the cops get there. That's something that you really can't do with the kickboxing that I had before, because basically all I could do is punch and kick the guy, and me being as strong as I am, I'm a pretty strong guy now. I bench press around 360 pounds, and
Hmm.
I can throw a pretty good punch. Two or three punches and a kick, and that guy could be dead or in the
Yeah.
hospital, and that's just not justified in that particular case. And I know some would argue with me, but some would also be going to jail for overuse of force too. So,
Hmm. No, definitely, and I think, and again, just to tie in to what you were saying as a whole, this is an area, like you said, there are a lot of preppers we see that have so many things in place that are great, but they lack in physical fitness, which I claim I have so much work to do in that whole area, and they lack in combatives. And again, that's why I made that choice back in the fall to start training in this. And you're right, Jack, because I carry a weapon. You do. A lot of preppers do, where they live in states that don't have as I call pro criminal laws.
Hmm.
You know, but not every situation calls for me drawing my gun out,
In
and
fact, most don't.
most don't. Now, Florida is a little bit more lenient. We have castle doctrine. We have stand your ground, but even then, you got to ask yourself, that pulling out a weapon, and we're going to do a whole another series of episodes on weapons,
Right.
both guns and otherwise. When you pull out a gun, that is a life changing moment for you.
Hmm.
That really is, and so you really want to have options that don't involve you having to shoot somebody.
Right.
And like you said, me walking out of a restaurant with my wife, somebody who is half my size gropes her. It does not need me to take out my gun unless the
Right.
person has a weapon.
Right.
So I need to learn how to at least get them off her or me and get them on the ground, whether that's by them being in pain or as I say, escorting them to the ground,
Right.
because pulling out your gun is a whole other situation that is not to be taken lightly. And I'm of the school of thought, not to get too off topic, if you pull out a gun or any weapon,
Hmm.
you're pulling it out to use it. It's not showtime. It's not.
Well,
It's not. It's not show and tell.
right, and according to the law, and this is pretty much in every state. Now, I don't. Before we get too far into this, let me say that I'm not a lawyer. I'm not going to offer any legal advice. I'm just going to say that I have had extensive training in the use of deadly force, and due to what I've done in my past, and my state may be a little different than yours. If you live in California or New York that have these pro-criminal laws, I'm sure your situation is going to be a little different than it
Much
is
different. There's some
here in the
places you can't
South.
even carry pepper spray.
Right. So, that being said, by all means, check with your local, check with an attorney, check with your local laws, so you stay within the laws of your area. But for our case and from where I'm from, here's kind of the way it stands. When you pull a weapon,
Mhm.
you are introducing deadly force into the equation. Okay? If deadly force was not already present, then you escalated it to that. You are then the aggressor.
Mhm.
So if you pull a weapon on someone who if you pull a weapon in a situation where there's not a disparity of force, and I'll explain what I mean by that in a minute. If you pull a weapon in a situation whether it be a knife or a gun or whatever, you pull a weapon in a situation where deadly force was not already an issue, or there was not a disparity of force, you're not justified in pulling that weapon, and you have become the aggressor. You have become by default the bad guy in this situation, whether you know it or not. And a prime example of that would be, let's say let's say David and I, we get into an argument out here, right? One thing leads to another, and we're in a good old fist fight for whatever reason. Maybe
Mhm.
maybe there was one bite of ribeye steak left, and he
That's
snagged it, and I it was mine, dang it. So we're
it's
out
worth
here,
fighting for.
right? We're out here in the parking lot, and we got our fist up. That's a mano y mano thing right there. I'm
Mhm.
226 pounds. David's about 290.
Mhm.
We're both within a couple of inches height of each other. They're gonna say that's a mano y mano confrontation. Now, if I take it to the next level and I reach over there and I grab a bottle and I break it and I come in him with that bottle, now I just jacked it up to deadly force.
Mhm.
Now he's legal to pull his gun and do what he's got to do. Also, if we're in that same situation and I'm out there and I got my hands up and he's got his up, and I bring in two of my buddies who are my size or bigger
Mhm.
into that scenario, now we have a disparity of force, and now he's also justified in pulling his weapon because there is a disparity of force. We have the ability to cause him grave bodily harm or death just with our bodies, because we outnumber him and we're all big guys.
Mhm.
And so you have to take that into account and really know what you're doing when you're bringing that into the equation, and also understand that if you carry a gun and you don't have some type of training in retaining that weapon, some type of weapon retention training, you are as much danger to yourself as you are the criminal.
Absolutely. I mean, in Krav, we're taught, and it's more so in the advanced belts, how to take a gun from somebody
Hmm.
as a measure of self defense.
Hmm.
So that is crucial. When we get into firearms training, and I submit I even have a long ways to go in that. It's just there's just I think there's so much involved when you pull that gun out. There's so many things there, and I think it's kind of, it sounds cheesy, but it really is a life changing, though a life changing moment, because you could take somebody's life, whether you mean to or not. And this stuff, well, I'm going to shoot him in the leg. Well, I'm sorry, that doesn't work that way. And I'm a believer, when you shoot somebody, you shoot to kill. So you really need to have combatives
Well,
training.
let's change your wording around a little
Hmm.
bit.
Hmm.
And you shot them to stop them.
Shot. There you go. Shot.
You shoot
You
to
shot to
stop
stop.
you shoot to stop the aggression, and you keep shooting them until they're no longer being an aggressive threat towards you. Uh,
Exactly.
and people. Here's the thing: anyone who says anything about pulling your gun out and shooting them in the leg, or shooting the gun out of their hand, or shooting them in the arm and winging them, anyone who says anything like that to you, stop listening to that person now. Because they're going to get you in a world of hurt and a world of trouble at some
Yeah.
point. Get away from them, because they have no idea what they're talking about. A gun is considered a lethal weapon, and whether you take it out to shoot them in the knee or not, it's still using deadly force upon that person. Your best bet, and we'll get into this more when we talk about the weapons, but if you're going to pull a weapon, you aim center mass, and with a few exceptions, and you keep shooting until the person's no longer a threat anymore. Um, but that goes back to what we were just talking about, though. If the only, a lot of these guys, that are out of shape, and they have no combative skills and no hand-to-hand skills at all, their whole idea behind protecting themselves is, well, I got my 45 over here, and if
Hmm.
so and so, I'll just pull. Well, when your only tool is a hammer, every problem starts to look like a nail. and
Exactly.
and there's your problem right there. You start to justify scenarios in your mind, and anyone who's ever taken any self-defense, or they carry a gun or anything like that, we have all gone over scenarios in our heads, right? Well, if this
Hmm.
guy was to do this, what would I do? Or if I was in this restaurant and two guys came in with guns, what would I do? And we've all been over these types of scenario. I know I have. I hope I'm not the only paranoid one out there.
No, I definitely
But you go over these little
do.
scenarios in your head, and when the only tool you have is a weapon, a firearm especially, you start to rationalize in your mind, well, I would be justified in shooting this guy because this, or I'd be justified in taking this shot because of that. And the thing is, most of the time you're not going to be. Most of the time, unless this person represents a clear and present, an imminent threat toward you, or an innocent bystander, you're not going to be justified in shooting this person. So if your whole idea behind your self-defense is, I'll just shoot them, then you need to start back from the drawing board. You need to leave your gun at home until you get some training. Put the ammo in a drawer somewhere, lock it up, and get some training, and then come back to it when you're mature enough to handle that responsibility.
I mean, that's just exactly right. And we'll also get into, when we talk about guns more, is there's a mindset you have to kill somebody. It's not just, oh, I want to pull my gun out like they do on TV and just shoot somebody.
Right.
So again, having that training, and by training, we're not saying you, like, again, you, like I said, I'm not trying to go out and be a black belt. Okay. I don't know where my path will lead me in CRAW, but I'm not trying to be a black belt. Just go out and learn some kind of structured self defense. I think, first off, if you are somebody who is to the point that you don't even go to the gym, that you just need to get in shape, before you even start training on combatives, I would just say, go out and walk.
Right.
Get that cardio going. I
Yep.
mean, again, I've been in and out of gyms since I was in high school. Now, cardio, as you can tell by my look, has not been my strong point, but I can walk a few miles and I'm fine. But even I, as you'll see in my footage, in the 3 minutes of the test part I did at the very end, I was extremely winded, and that's not my first rodeo with that.
Right.
So I would submit, first, if you've done nothing, is just start a fitness regime, something that you can manage and do, and then choose your combatives. Because you can't, I mean, you got to be of some fitness level to go into a combatives. Unless I mean, you could do like cardio boxing, like I've done in the past, stuff like that. But even then, I think really get to the point where you can control your breathing. You can breathe. You cannot be out of breath, and then choose your combatives. That's what
I,
I would do.
I tend to agree. I'll go another way about it and say, it it comes down to this. you will see, and you'll see this a lot in your what I refer to as your mech dojos.
Hmm.
And what you're going to see is you'll a lot of times you'll see this fat guy who's up there wearing the black belt, and he's winded after throwing 3 kicks or whatever.
Hmm.
Don't be that guy, and don't train under that guy.
No.
Okay, if the guy who is teaching can throw 3 or 4 kicks or punches without being winded, that's not the guy you want to be training you. It's just
Hmm.
not, because if he doesn't understand the simple principle of being fit enough to fight, then what is he going to teach you about fighting? He has
Exactly.
no idea what he's doing, and that's just the way it is. Now, that's not to say you have to be a huge, jacked up, big guy, and I say that because the guy that I got my original rank from, Hoist Gracie, was 6'2" and weighed 176 pounds. He was not a big guy by any stretch of the imagination, but I mean, you get on the ground with him, there was nothing you could do. Now, I'll go a step further as far as how to pick where you train. I think that's very important that we go there. What martial art or what combative system do you need to do you think you need to take? And in my opinion, if you walk into a place and they say, all we do is stand up and we punch and kick, we don't go to the ground because we have these magic techniques that keep you from ever
Yeah.
having to go to the ground, and we're never going to be taken to the ground, get out of that school right then. Just
Hmm.
leave it right then, because they're blowing smoke up your ass right there. I'm being real with you. If you honestly think that you're never going to be taken to the ground, then you are delusional. Period. End of story. At some point, you will. 91% of all fights end up on the ground. So if you're training all stand up, you're training for about 9% of the situations you're likely to be in.
Hmm.
The reality of the situation is, if you don't know how to fight on the ground, you don't know how to fight. The reality of the situation is, if you don't know how to fight standing up, you don't know how to fight. So if you go to one of these sporting, I call them sporting Brazilian jiu-jitsu schools, and they tell you, oh well, you always take them down, or you pull guard, or no, no. If every single aspect of their whole being and their whole philosophy is it has to be on the ground, then you're in the wrong school.
Exactly.
Because fights don't work like that. They just don't. You might start standing, you might end up on the ground. There might end up being 2 people. But I will say this too: a third red flag. So there's your first red flag. There's your second red flag. Your third red flag is, if you walk into a school and the instructor wants to be referred to as Master, Supreme, Grand Dragon, whatever, with smoke and mirrors and sparklers coming out of his ears. If he wants to be referred to by some one of these names, Grandmaster, whatever,
Artificial
and
title.
you have to kiss his feet coming into the
Mhm.
classroom and all that. If that be the case, leave right then, because that's not good. There's a red flag number three. Uh, Red flag number four. If they and there are, I understand there's some legitimate research that has been done on chi and energy and internal energy and stuff like that. I understand that. But if you're in a school that overemphasizes that aspect and they don't keep it real, if you're in a school where you never put gloves on and test each other, if you're in a school where all of it's mystical and they tell you that the techniques are so deadly that you can't practice them, then get out of that school, because again, they are blowing smoke up your ass. That's just
Mhm.
how it is. There are no super deadly secret techniques out there. Martial arts have been out there for what, 6,000 years.
Mhm.
There are no super secret techniques that haven't been exposed out there. There's a limited number of vital points on the human body. Everybody knows what they are, and there's 100 different ways of using each one of them. So if they tell you that, no, what I'm going to teach you is so deadly that we can't practice it in here then just leave. Just leave right then, because again, they're blowing smoke.
Exactly. I
What?
mean, when I where I chose to train, well, I got referred by a friend of mine,
Hmm.
but still, I had known about this place for a while. I go to Victory Martial Arts, which that's a nationwide chain. They got I think about 30 stores. they're not franchised, but it kind of follows that typical model.
Hmm.
And the main instructor, again, we call them instructors. We don't call them grand masters
Right,
unless
right,
they legitimately have that title. And most of those don't work in the stores. They come visit once a year. And where I work, we just call everybody Mister or Miss, whatever their last name is, and
right.
the instructors give that same respect to you. So it's not like
You know what they call me at my school?
what.
Jack.
There you go. I kind of wish we used first names, but they're all about
Right.
because where I go is heavy on Taekwondo with mostly children. They're heavy on teaching respect, so they naturally use last names. So I knew it was a chain, so I knew that they had some validity behind them. I kind of researched who their founders were, and then I actually found out my instructor I actually knew through a friend. So research where you're going. Don't just because it pops up and they say Taekwondo or Krav
Hmm.
Maga or whatever on the door. Research because there's even different schools in Krav Maga, schools of thought in Taekwondo and Jiu Jitsu. You gotta know what you're learning here, and you have to trust who you're training with is not going to kill you. I don't mean intentionally, but Krav Maga is very hands-on.
Right.
The philosophy mostly behind Krav is it's not fancy forms and footwork and doing all this. It is very ballistic, very intense, quick action to defend yourself and leave.
Hmm.
And when we train, we go all but this close to contact unless you got the pads on,
Hmm.
and I have to trust my instructor and the partner I'm with. They're not gonna, to the best of their ability, hurt me.
Right.
So that's one thing too that I would look at. And I would also be careful of places that are all about your money. I mean, yes, these places are a business. They got to make payroll just like
Right.
everybody
Right.
else. But you don't want a place where that's all they're focused on is just, well, how much money can I get from you this month?
Exactly.
So I would stay focused on that. And then just for me, in what I'm doing and what I say, I'm kind of a prime example of our target audience of this podcast because I was that person before October who needed combatives. And I chose Krav because again, it's very practical. It's not something where it's a very showy sport. I needed something where I can learn, I can take away from the very first class, and I have been. And it's given me the ability where, not saying I'm going to win a fight, but I'll have a fighting chance, no pun intended. And
Right.
that's why I've chosen Krav. And at the end of this footage, sorry, at the end of our podcast here, you're going to see our footage. And you're seeing the abbreviated belt test that I'll be taking. I'm a third degree white belt right now, which means I have 3 black stripes on that white belt. I'll be testing for my first belt, which is orange belt, or we call it pumpkin jokingly. And so what you'll be seeing is an abbreviated version of my belt test I'll be taking in the next few weeks. So just that's what I looked for when I was looking for a school: validity, keeping it real, immediate takeaways, and nothing too crazy. And I think
Right.
if you take that approach, even if you just want to do boxing, just
Hmm.
something. If you take that approach to any place you go, I think you're gonna do well.
And I would, as far as narrowing it down, like you said, as far as your places to train or whatever, I would also stay away from the. You want to stay away from the places that never allow you to make contact with your aggressor, with
Oh
your
yeah,
training
no,
partner.
you,
Stay away
oh,
from those
for
places
sure.
that all you're allowed to do is punch the air and pads. Stay away from those places, but at the same time, you want to stay away from those places that they're springing up all over the place now. The quote MMA schools.
Yeah.
Basically, you get 2 or 3 guys together that think they know what they're doing. They've seen watched a few UFCs. They start their own thing out of their garage. You probably want to stay away from that too, because those guys will end up getting you hurt. They haven't been shown the proper way, and even if they have won a few MMA fights, it doesn't mean they know the proper way to do each thing. You know what I mean? They may have some boxing, they may have a little jiu-jitsu, but they really don't know any of it that well, and they sure don't know it well enough to teach someone else how to do it in a safe environment, not get someone hurt. If you go to a school and people are dropping out all the time due to injuries, that's probably a red
Hmm.
flag. Someone doesn't know what they're doing. I've been teaching jiu-jitsu now for about 3.5 years, and I've been doing it for 14. And I've had one serious injury in 14 years, and that was my own fault. As far as my students go, I've never had a student of mine seriously injured in 3.5 years. So I knock on wood, but I mean, it is what it is, and that could change tomorrow. But so far, I haven't had any serious injuries. Now, you're always, I think, if you're going to be If you want to be real, you want to keep your training realistic. There's going to be some force on force training, okay?
Definitely.
There just is, and you have to have that so that you understand what facing a resisting opponent feels like. If you don't have that, your training is no good. It's just it's
Hmm.
useless. So you need that. But if you get a few scrapes on your hands or your knuckles or a bloody nose or something, or maybe a jammed finger or something every once in a while, that's one thing, and that's to be expected. If you're training hard, you're going to get bumps and bruises, you're going to get scrapes and nicks. That's to be expected. But as far as that goes, man up. You know what I mean? This is not.
Yeah.
If it was easy, everybody would do it. So
Jack,
so and or
you remind me of a very important point that I know you and I have talked about, but I forgot to mention it in our podcast here. And
mhm,
I think I've told you this offline. One of the most beneficial things that I've gotten out of Krav is not so much learning the skill, is actually being hit.
mhm,
I've never been in a fight.
right,
I'm your typical white boy from the suburbs, very good Christian Catholic boy, raised in private school. I was not on the streets,
mhm,
so that was even more of an urgency for me to learn combatives. And from learning that, when I'm holding the pad, and though I'm not getting hurt, we got some big guys in my class, and they're going full throttle at me because I'm a big guy and I can hold the pad. I mean, that first two classes, I was sore from just feeling that impact.
just
And
holding the
it's
pad.
and it's and it's very important that you learn what it's like to get hit.
Right.
Because if you've never been hit before, that just getting hit once, even by a guy half your
Yeah, you
size,
don't want the first time getting hit to be out
no.
on the street.
So I forgot to mention that it's crucial that you learn. As just I know we're trained, especially in America, to avoid pain, and you should in most cases. But learn what it feels like to get hit
Right.
before you get in a real world fight, because that's just crucial. That was one of my biggest takeaways in Krav, was learning what getting hit feels like.
Right, and when we, about once every 6 weeks, I'll do 2 days on. What I do is I'll put the boxing gloves on, some 14-ounce gloves, and I'm throwing my punches at maybe 20 to 30%. And what the students have to do is take me down and control me while I'm trying to be aggressive toward them, while I'm trying to punch them. And I will punch them. I'll punch them right in the face. I'll punch them in the ribs, and I'm punching at about 20 to 30% with 14-ounce gloves on. And then at the end of it, they're like, "Oh man, that's the hardest thing I've ever done," and this and that, and it hurt so bad, and this. And I'm like, I set them down after the class, and I explain to them, "Listen, I'm your friend, okay?
Hmm.
I work with you every day. I'm your buddy, and I'm trying to help you. And we're in here on a nice soft mat. I'm wearing 14-ounce gloves. I'm holding back a lot, and I'm not
Hmm.
really trying to hurt you that bad. Now, switch that over to this guy who's a little bit bigger and stronger than me out here on the pavement. He's not wearing gloves, and he's intent on bashing your brains in. Now you see how far you have to go. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? If you're complaining about this, you need to think about what I'm trying to get you ready for out there. We want, if you get hit, we want it to happen in here with me and these gloves, and not out there with you and the cement and that 240-pound bar fighter. So and it is what it is. Like I said, you can't be a sissy about it, but you don't want
Hmm.
to be in one of those places where it's all macho and you can smell the
Exactly.
testosterone
It's
when
a
you walk
very
in.
it's a balancing act.
It is. You have to balance out.
Hmm.
You have to balance that out. And like I said, it's one of those things. If anybody has any questions, I've been in the martial arts, like I said, for over 20 years now. If anybody has any questions, by all means, ask them in the comment section on Facebook. David's going to post our email at
Yes.
the bottom of the video. So email us with your questions, comments. Like I said, at the end of this, we are going to show some footage of David doing what he does, a little bit about me doing what I do. Keep in mind that he's got about 3 minutes of footage, and I'm going to have about 5 or 6. But this is by no means everything we do. That he did 3 minutes of his, and I did just a few techniques on mine.
Hmm.
But there are thousands of techniques in what I do, and there's different
Hmm.
levels that I'll work with. A white belt versus a blue belt versus someone who comes in who's been training for 15, 20 years. There's different levels of training that I can't necessarily show in my video, just due to not having somebody there of higher rank that I could if someone was, and
Hmm.
I'm sure with Krav Maga it's the same way.
Yeah.
If you had two black belts going at it, showing the techniques,
Yeah,
it
it's
would be a
different.
lot different than what you're showing. So,
Yeah, it is, and it's so. But I would say, bottom line, do something.
Do something.
Something. The like the
Some
theory, like
training is better than
yeah,
no training.
it's like the whole theory of Krav Maga is do whatever works.
Right.
That's literally the first rule of Krav Maga is do whatever works, and that's the first rule I would say of this podcast is if you're sitting there on the couch, which I love to do, and you're listening to us, you have no fitness level or combative training. Start simple, get some exercise, get a plan together,
Hmm.
and then find a place that works for you. Even if it's just even if you join a gym to get the exercise level, and they offer a cardio kickboxing class
Hmm.
where there's no contact. If that's your first entrance in there, great. That gets you into that mindset of throwing those punches,
Hmm.
doing those kicks. And then you can move on to go find a specific gym that has the martial arts that you want to train in. But I would just encourage, I think, Jack, correct me if I'm wrong, people like me, which I relate to most people in this podcast, that might not have had any training, I would really focus on a school that will teach you something practical like Krav Maga, or maybe like some kind of mixed martial arts that you can verify, because you don't want to just be learning fancy forms and kicks that are just not applicable
No.
to what you're doing. Not
If
saying
any
that's bad. If that's your,
if anybody says anything to you about scoring points, run.
yeah.
Turn the other
This is you.
direction and run.
You say I was very clear when I signed up. I said I am looking because I need to be more aggressive. I'm not a very aggressive person at all. I need to learn to be aggressive. I need to learn self defense. I do not care about what color my belt is to a certain extent. I do not care about learning a fancy form or I have no intention of being in any competitions. I want to learn a practical skill
Something's
that I
gonna
can
work.
use to defend myself and my family. Because, like we said in the beginning, a gun is not always the answer.
Right, and I'll say a couple other things about that too. As far as your red flags, red flag number 5, I think is what I'm up to now. If you walk into a school and they, like I said, they say anything about points, this is 2 points, that's 4 points, run away. That's not a school you want to be at. If they say anything about points, run away. Uh, red flag number 6, any martial art, any martial art that teaches you that you can defend yourself against 3 or more, or say multiple attackers, run away. Run away right then. The only defense to 3 or more people who are intent on doing you some serious bodily harm is a weapon, and any martial art that tries to teach you otherwise, they are blowing smoke. Period, pure and simple.
Hmm.
And if you don't believe that, I got some footage that I can show you of some prison fights where 2, 3 people got on one guy, and it never works out well. I don't care who you are, or who you think you are, what you
Yeah.
think you know. If 3 or more people are intent on doing you some serious harm is going to come to you. You have 2 options there. You can run away and hope you're faster than all 3 of them, or you can pull a weapon. Those are your 2 options. Don't stand there and think. That goes back to that movie mentality. People
Hmm.
watch too many Steven Seagal movies, or they watch Jean Claude Van Damme, and they think they can do this because they've seen it. Let me tell you, those people can't do this. If
Yeah.
if 3 hardened criminals go after Steven Seagal, they're going to kick his ass, just so you know. And that's why he carries a 45 on his strong side hip everywhere he goes. Just for those that might not know Steven
Exactly.
Seagal, he's always armed. He carries a 45 on him. And that's why he carries a 45 on him. When those 3 thugs jump on him, he's going to be able to defend himself, because he knows what he does in the movies and what happens on the street, 2 very different things.
And I would encourage, and Jack, I think that this is very very important to point out. I think I've learned in Krav. Yes, in all these martial arts, you learn restraint. You learn when to use a certain level of force, when not to.
Right.
But if you are attacked on the street, and you have decided that this is not a gunfight, that this is a fist fight
Mm-hmm.
to defend yourself, there are no rules.
Mm-hmm.
Blast the person in the crotch.
Yep.
I'm dead
Yep.
serious. I'm a 300-pound man. I will blast somebody in the crotch in a heartbeat
Well,
because I'm not starting the fight.
that's one of those mental barriers you have to overcome.
Yeah,
People have been there's some fallacies that people have been taught their whole lives that just don't apply in the street, and they would get you killed in the street. And
exactly.
I can tell you a few of them right now. Uh, don't hit the crotch. Complete
Hmm.
bullshit. Always go for the crotch.
Yeah,
Don't never hit a woman. You don't ever hit a woman. Yeah, you do. If she's
Yeah,
coming at
they're
you with a baseball bat, you lay her
yeah,
out just like you would
yeah.
the other guy.
You just Jack,
Don't
you are so correct. We are trained with these rules
yeah,
because people like
and
you and
they're
me,
fake
law-abiding
rules.
people,
Yeah.
we like rules. We obey by rules.
Hmm.
People that are attacking you don't obey by
No,
rules.
it's
And it is not
artificial.
like, oh, well, I'm not a man if I don't kick you in the crotch. Oh,
Right.
hell no.
No,
I want to blast you in the
it's
crotch.
artificial limitations that we placed on ourselves. You need to remove those limitations. Don't go for the crotch. No, you always go for the
No.
crotch. Don't hit a woman. Yeah, you will. Don't poke the eyes. The eyes are one of the first things I'm going for. Don't bite. If I get mounted on top of you, the first thing I'm doing is biting your nose off because you're going to have a real hard time fighting me with no nose and your eyes poked out. So I'm
Exactly.
just, understand that, the level of aggression. If we're rolling around, the way I feel about it is, if I'm rolling around out here on asphalt in front of my daughter and my wife,
Hmm.
my life is on the line. One of us is not making it home, and guess where I'm going? I'm going home at night.
Amen. Amen.
So even I
That's
might have to spend overnight in
amen.
jail, but I'm going home the next night. So
Exactly, and you'll see in the footage of me, one of the first things we do in this test I'm taking, is the
it's a
crotch
straight up
blast.
kick to the
It's straight
crotch.
up crotch because I'm sorry again that if you don't take anything away from this podcast, if you don't say hell no, I'm not going to go train. No, if you are attacked, kick them in the crotch. I don't care how vulgar that sounds. You can kick him in the crotch because you are defending yourself. And remember, always remember these words. And again, I say check with your local law enforcement for rules.
Excuse me.
You were in fear for your life.
Yep.
You were in fear for your life.
And keep this in mind too. It's what I tell some of my students. Um, why is it that when let's say we have a 60 or 70 pound pit bull, uh, why is it that the average adult is scared of a 60 or 70 pound pit bull? Why is that? Why is it that you're scared of why is it that if you're out on the trail, hiking on a trail up north, and a mountain lion jumps out that weighs barely 100 pounds, why are you so scared of that 100-pound mountain lion and you're not scared of a 100-pound human being? Why?
Interesting.
Here's why. Because you know how violent and how aggressive that mountain lion is going to be. You know how violent and aggressive that pit bull is going to be. You know that you will get bitten, you will get scratched, and you will not, even if you beat this animal, you will not leave without some very, very bad, severe injuries to yourself. And that's why most people leave those animals the hell alone. And it's the same thing with a human being. If you turn it up a notch and that the other person realizes real quick, I'm not going to get out of this without losing a limb or a nose or an eye or something, most people will leave you alone.
Exactly.
They don't want to be in that situation. You have to kick that level of aggression up there to where you're able to be more violent than that person and turn it up and hit that person with such ferocious offense that they don't want any part of that situation, and you have them backpedaling. And a lot of that goes back to Krav Maga because
It
a
is
lot of the Krav
that is Krav
that
Maga.
is a very
You
aggressive.
just defined Krav
Right,
Maga right there.
and it is, and that's our philosophy as
Yeah.
well. Even though I do and I teach Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Kina Muay is a whole different thing, and it comes out to be where if I'm on the ground and I'm flat on my back and I can't get you off of me, great. I'm going to hold on to you as tight as I can, and I'm going to start gnawing at a jugular vein until you decide to let me go. And
It's
I'll eat your face off before I let you go. And I'll do whatever I have to do to get away. And that goes back to that mentality of being able to take it where you need it. Now, truth be known, what we do is more aggressive, probably, than the Krav Maga. But it goes
hmm
back to the same type of philosophy, getting you to
hmm
that same mindset to take you where you need to be in a fight, where you are the aggressor. And it's the same thing. Would you go out and you attack a 70-pound pit bull? No, because you're going to get your arm chewed off. Well, it's that same level right there. You should be able to take it up where that's where you're at right there. Nobody wants to attack you because you are that mountain lion, or you are that that 70 or 80-pound pit bull. And be able to do whatever it takes to survive. And that's a whole other aspect, the mental aspect of it.
It's huge. The
The
mental aspect is huge.
the mental aspect, in my opinion, is even harder than the physical aspect. Now, as it
Yeah.
is right now, you're dealing with the physical aspect because neither one of us are in real great shape. I mean, I might be in a
I'm
little bit
not.
better
Lord
shape than
knows
you
that.
are, but I mean, you're getting to that point though, and
Yeah.
you're making a conscious effort now
Hmm.
to get yourself to where because you realize that is one of your weaknesses,
It
and,
is.
and you're taking things in that direction. You're working on your weak
Yeah.
points and where you need to be. I think we both are. And that's all we want to do. You know, we're not saying anybody's going to leave from here and go out and be a pro MMA
No.
fighter or some Billy Badass or whatever. That's not what we're saying. What we're saying is don't kid yourself by thinking you don't need some type of hand-to-hand training. You really do. Everybody does.
You do. It's just again, it's another tool in your tool belt.
Yep.
You got food preps, water preps, medical preps, gun preps, or tactical preps. There,
Yep.
you got to have combatives. You have
Got
to,
to.
and
It's part of
and
it.
decide what combatives work for you. I'm not saying Krav. We're not saying doing the whole jiu-jitsu route, but you got to find something that works for you. Something is better than nothing.
Yes.
Even just getting off the couch and learning how to breathe and do cardio properly is better than doing nothing, because you know everything that does not call for a gunfight. You might not always have your gun on you, and you're just a fool if you think that you got your self defense covered because you bought a gun. You took a class how to shoot it.
Exactly. And you know the thing is, as far as being, this goes back to being fighting fit or whatever. Uh, it comes down to this: if you can't, and David and I are both pretty strong guys. We've been
Hmm.
working out for years with the weights, but if you can't do 20 push-ups, and I mean real push-ups,
Hmm.
man push-ups, all the way down, all the way back. If
Yeah.
you can't do 20 push-ups, then you need to get your butt off the couch. Stop eating your ice cream and your Cheetos and watching your football games. You need to get your butt off the couch and do something. If you can't walk 1 mile,
You
you
will
need
not
to get,
survive. You
you will
just will
not
not
survive.
survive.
If you
No.
can't do a pull up, you need to work on that. You know what I mean? If you can't do, and there's a lot. If you can't do 30 or 40 sit-ups, I mean, come on, really?
Hmm.
This is basic stuff that any average adult male should be able to do. And if you can't at least do that, then you know what you need to focus on. Be honest with yourself.
Hmm.
Don't bullshit yourself and think
Hmm.
just because you've watched some Steven Seagal movies you're going to be able to
Yeah.
do that. You need to get up off the couch. You need to assess, give yourself an honest assessment. Where's my fitness level right now?
Hmm.
What do I really know that I
Hmm.
have tested that I know works in a real fight? And I guarantee you that's going to be very, if you're honest with yourself, that's going to be very little, most people.
Yeah.
Uh, what do I really know? And what is my physical condition, and then take an honest assessment of it, and then go from there and start working on it. I mean, if you know that's your fail point, work on it.
And guys, I'm living proof, Exhibit A, of that you can, not that I've accomplished something great, but that you can be that out of shape person and start to make steps in your life. And I have a long way to go. I mean, I'll never be done
Right.
with what I need to do, but you can take steps to start learning how to not even get in shape. I hate using that phrase, but learning how to get in better health, and then learning combatives.
Right.
And like I said, I can bench press 340. I'm a strong guy, but my Krav instructor, who is 150 soaking wet, could wipe the floor with me.
Right.
Okay, so just don't think as a well. Even guys, I would say maybe got your gym portion covered, but you don't got your combatives portion covered. Don't think that just because you can throw up weight in the gym. I mean, yeah, being strong does give you some advantage,
Mm-hmm.
but technique is huge. If you don't have that technique to back up that power, what use is that power?
Right.
You know,
Right.
it's just not good. So yeah, don't if you are a guy that is strong, don't let that give you too much comfort.
Right. Don't get a false sense of self confidence because you can
Hmm.
move some weight in the gym. I tell you, you'd be surprised how many guys I get that come in and they've obviously been lifting weights for years and they're jacked to the gills and they get on the mat and after 5 minutes or 5 minutes or so they're puking their guts out. I've had people
Amazing.
come in and they think they're in shape until they do this and they find out real quick. Yeah, I'm in shape for lifting weights.
Hmm.
I'm in shape. The first time I ever got on the mat, I thought I was in shape. I was 152 pounds. I had 5.9% body fat.
Wow.
I had abs, I had veins, and I could punch the heavy bag for 45 minutes straight, full out, and without even breathing hard. And I just knew I was in excellent physical condition. I did
Hmm.
construction work, and man, I was strong for my size, and I got on the mat the first time in jiu-jitsu and I was puking after 3 minutes.
Amazing.
That's how hard it, because I was in shape for working and I was
Mhm.
in shape for punching that bag. I was not in shape for combat. There's a
Mhm.
difference. So there is a difference, and like I said, just be honest with yourself. Nobody, we can't make anybody do anything. This is up to you to listen to this, listen to our advice, take an honest assessment of
Mhm.
yourself, get off your butt and do something, and be prepared,
Exactly.
and
Exactly.
be prepared realistically.
And I'm just saying, I'm living proof that you can do it. If I can do it, everybody listening and watching can do it. Trust me. So
It's true. Well, I think we pretty much covered everything,
I
David.
think we did. I think we
Um,
did.
like I said, stay tuned. We're going to have some footage of some of our little moves and so a
Mhm.
little bit of the training that we do at the end, and we'll have more footage to come later. I think next week maybe David's going to have us a little bit of footage from the range. So
Possibly. Yeah.
and I might have a gear review coming. So we'll
Nice.
see how that goes.
I love
Anyway,
gear.
everybody, thanks for watching, and tune in next week for the Realistic Prepper.
All right, see y'all later.